All right, welcome back to another edition of the Sports Den podcast. We skipped last week. We took a week off because it's summer vacation. And look, I'm Will Weber. I'm the sports editor. I'm joined as always by James Barron, the esteemed state honoree for Sports Writer of the Year. James, which the banquet for you is coming up in
This weekend.
North
Yeah.
Carolina. Is it this weekend? There you go.
Yeah. And I ain't going.
Yeah, you're not going. But see, you and I look forward to this time of year because we grind it for 8 or 10, 12 months of the year. And
Yeah.
then we always look forward to summer. And then summer gets here and we have nothing to do. We just sit around looking at each other. So it's a weird, especially now that the NBA is over, hockey's over, and all we have
I know these are
is
the dog days of sports for us right now. There's nothing going on.
we're covering the Fuego like they're the New York Yankees in the pennant race. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. What are they now? These 7-17 Santa Fe
Yeah,
Fuego.
yeah.
They pretty much from the last time we chatted, they've pretty much blown any opportunity they had of even sneaking into the playoffs.
Well, remember last year they had like a 16 game losing streak and they're still alive for the playoffs until the last week of the season. So
Yeah.
never say
Yeah.
never, you
No,
know.
I know, but
But
at least they're in a better situation than they were last year.
yeah, the team ERA has dropped from 13 and a half down to 12, so they're getting better. So the pitching is much improved. I mean, they might have the most improved pitching staff in the Pecos League.
Small steps, Will, man.
Mm.
That's what it is. Small baby steps.
Yeah, and last week I went to a game, did a feature story about Jesus Chavez, the local kid. He's from Espanola, who's in line for the Triple Crown in the Pecos League. He's not going to get it because he doesn't travel on the road. He's got a real
Mhm.
job. He's a physical therapist in Albuquerque. He lives in Albuquerque, and he just drives up for home games. So he's going to miss half their games down the stretch, which is going to kill him for the home run title. And he
Yeah,
might
but
not.
even with that, look at what he's doing just in literally half the season.
Yeah, and just a nice guy, down to earth, real aw shucks kind of kid. And well, I shouldn't say kid; he's 28 years old now, but he's found his love of the game. He just really likes being out there, and he's hitting home runs at like a Barry Bonds on steroids pace. He's hitting one like once every 5.5 at bats. It's just insane what he's been able to do. But look, if you got $9 in your pocket and you have a free night and it's late and
Yeah,
it's Wednesday on to Sunday, you might as well just go to Fort Marcy. What else are you going to do? Go hang out and watch Fuego, watch a 4 hour Fuego game that ends what, like 25-19. So you can
yes,
do that.
there you go. My question though is, have they even used the net? Has the net even come into play yet?
Well,
The first, I mean, the
yeah.
last story I wrote before our quick hiatus, I write about how they get this new fence, and all they did was hit 2 home runs over it, and nothing even hit
Yeah.
this 30-foot wall or fence, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
So
the
I'm like,
turquoise tower,
the turquoise
which is
tower.
black netting and it's invisible. You cannot see it until you walk right up to it. Yeah, I walked behind it and checked it out. And like I was telling us, we had a private chat that night. I was texting James the entire night, but the netting was supposed to be 200 feet long. It actually is 200 feet long, but what they did is they folded it in on itself.
Because
So there's a good 75 feet folded in on one side and the other 75 feet. It's like, so really they could have extended this thing all the way to the middle of the pedestrian bridge. If
but they
you've been,
couldn't afford those 4 other posts that they
yeah,
needed to extend it out that far.
yeah, the 4 other posts and probably 15 bags of quick rate from Lowe's that you could have gotten for, and then just, maybe a crane to drop it in there. But, it's Santa Fe. So you take what you can get, but you're right. Not a single ball went off the fence that night or the wall, which to me, I think would have been cool because if you're watching the game and a guy hits a laser beam to right field and it's headed out, it just hits this invisible force field and just drops
And it
straight
bounces
down.
right back.
It doesn't even bounce. It just like dribbles back down to the field. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But
Wow.
there are a lot of things about the Pecos League that have not come to fruition. The second camera they were supposed to install for your home viewing pleasure, they're supposed to install it in center field.
Nope.
That is still not there. The tarp, which they were supposed to be getting from Kansas City to cover the infield, is still in Kansas City because they can't find anybody with a truck big enough to bring it out here. That's what I was told last time. So
You keep talking bad about the Pecos League, and there's less and less likelihood that Andrew Dunn will ever make his second appearance on this podcast.
yeah, The first one was so memorable. It was so good. I did reach out to him. He did not respond to me. He's got his read receipts on. He got his messages. He just didn't respond to us. So I blame you for that, James. That's all your fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Says the guy that set this up. Well, it wasn't even your fault, man. Who knew that Andrew Dunn was going to be walking through an airport
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
11:30 our time?
Yeah. Which will forever go down as the best podcast in history. So look, if that's what we're dealing with the summer in Santa Fe, you can either go to a politically charged girls in sports rally, which was in Santa Fe or
Yeah,
yesterday on a
yesterday,
Monday,
yes.
or you can go watch the Fuego play, because we're certainly not going to have you go out and watch the rodeo to Santa Fe, which was held last weekend.
The
Uh,
what?
yeah, exactly, and that's all we're going to mention about that event.
Yeah,
It's no, since we were
a thing happened at the rodeo grounds for 5 days. We don't know what it was
there were
because
some lights
they won't
on.
let us report on it.
Yeah, there were lights on. There was traffic over there, but we were not allowed to access to it. Which is
Yes,
that's all we'll say about that. But
that's called good PR. There, Will.
right, this is like the world's best podcast. It's all positivity right now. And
Yeah,
so
I know, man. Nobody wants our love, man. They
yeah.
just keep pushing it back, man. I think they're scared of us. I think that's really what it is.
Well, while you were on your hiatus last week, the Lobo basketball team did open its doors to the media for the first time since Eric Olen, another friend of the podcast, since he took over as basketball coach, he let the media in to take a look at his team, and it was 30 minutes. It was a very quick in and out type thing. We were allowed to come in and watch, and then observe, take some pictures, and get the heck out of there. They kicked us out, which is fun. In here, like I was telling you guys before we even started this, is there were some media members there who were just like, "Oh my gosh, this team they're not going to skip a beat next year. They're going to be so good." Like, how in the world can you tell that from a 30-minute practice where the coach didn't really coach, the players weren't really running any plays, and they're still missing two of their best players, the two foreign guys that aren't even here yet? So, who are the best players? Are there any good? Do they have any chemistry? What uniform numbers are they going to wear? Where are you going to live? What's your class? Because there's so many inquiries. There is no way, not a single. If a media entity out there tries to tell you the Lobo basketball team is going to be good or bad or indifferent next year, don't believe them, because there's no way to know how that team is going to be until we get about 2-3 weeks into the season. Then we'll have at least a better and more educated guess. But
And when they win 30 games next year and make it to the Sweet 16, everybody's going to be like, everybody
yeah.
believed it except for Will Weber.
And I will take the L on that one. I will gladly take the L. But no, what I did is, when I was out there, I did notice that there are a couple players that you could probably go ahead and pencil into the starting lineup. Like this guy, Chris Howell, he's one of the transfers from San Diego, came with the coach. He's the only player that was allowed to talk to the media, so he's the guy. He'll be in the starting lineup. JT Rock, the 7'1" guy, he transfer from Iowa State, will be in there. Antonio Chol, who, in my very limited access to the team, this is my own personal opinion, Antonio Chol, the junior college All-American transfer from Garden City, I think he'll be their best player. He's at 6'9", power forward, does a little bit of everything. Dayton Albury, transfer from Utah State, he's a senior. He's got 1 year left. He'll be the point guard. You can tell he's the guy that's going to start in the backcourt. The kid I think everyone should keep an eye on, and he's got very strong Jalen House vibes,
Oh,
is a freshman, Uriah Tenet. I hope I'm saying his last name right, Tenete or Tenet. But this kid he's listed at 5'10", and every single time down the floor he was throwing down dunks, which was like amazing. But he looks like Jalen House. He runs like Jalen House. He even acts like Jalen House. Is he the next Jalen House?
but can he play like Jalen House?
Yeah,
That's going to be the $1 million
no idea.
question.
Yeah, this guy is very young, and you look at JT Rock, the 7'1" guy from Iowa State. He's only a sophomore, but he had reclassified as a high school senior. So when he was a freshman at Iowa State, he was a young freshman. So now he's a very young sophomore. So he's just turning 19 years old, and he's already a sophomore in college. So there's that. But yeah, that was my takeaway from the Lobo basketball team is I don't know. I don't know what to
I don't know.
expect.
I don't know. I was going to say it sounds like you're giving people a little bit of hope, a scotch.
Well, a little bit of hope in the sense that they will definitely have 5 guys in the lineup on opening night. That's for sure.
That's great to know.
And they will definitely be wearing red and white uniforms with some silver. And it might say Lobos or New Mexico on the front. That's about all I can tell you. That's it. Other than that, just got to wait and
And that
see.
it's all up for interpretation, right?
Yeah, I don't want to go off and write one of those stories, a clickbait story saying, "Oh gosh, Lobo basketball team not skipping a beat. Look out, Marquette. Look out, Big East. The Lobos are coming for you." It's I don't think it'll be like that, but we'll see.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
but that
that's fun.
yeah, look, dude, you and I have another month to go before football kicks in.
Oh, I know, man,
What are
and
we
yet we're
gonna
still
do?
talking about basketball and
'Cause,
baseball.
yeah, there's nothing else to talk about. What are we gonna do now for the next?
I know, and again, I'm just giving you more fodder for James's really insanely, it really does have this insane obsession with high school sports. But I spent my Saturday watching going to a basketball camp at Sandia Prep, and I saw St. Mike's and Robertson play.
Well, there's
Yeah,
medicine. There's medicine for that,
I
I think.
know, I know. I know.
But
I was doing it as I was doing it as a favor to to a couple of our friends that we play basketball with. Their son plays for Sandia Prep, and I get
yeah,
roped into it. And next thing I know, so I'm watching St. Mike's playing, and I'm talking to Robertson's basketball coach, and I'm kind of getting the lowdown on what we can expect in November. I will say this: St. Mike's is still going to be the team to beat, but they still have the same problem they had last year. They're great athletically. They can press you, up and down the court, and they're huge, but they still can't hit a jump shot to save their life.
yeah, yeah.
So
Who's gonna provide the points? Who's that
yeah,
guy? Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think there'll be points to be had there, but again, if you take care of the ball and you clog the middle, I mean, I think what worked last year is going to work this year, at least for right now, and that is, I mean, can St. Mike's shoot? And that's really just the $1 million question, because they've got everything else to beat most 3A schools, but teams that have good guards are going to give them trouble.
Well, how did Robertson look? That's another thing because Robertson,
Well, it's kind of hard to
turmoil
tell
due to that
because
injury.
they were missing a few guys. They were missing a couple of guards but Adam Bustos, Robertson's head coach, said that he feels very confident with his backcourt. He says he's got some size coming up. He's got some sophomores and freshmen, guys that are like 6'3", 6'4". So this team might actually be bigger and might match up better with St. Mike's than it did last year. But the question is going to be, how do you replace guys like the twins, Nathaniel and Jesse James Gonzalez, and then obviously
Mhm.
you lose George Smith. I mean, you really lost about 75 to 80% of your scoring right there. Now Nathan Gonzalez, he'll be a 6'4", 6'6". Actually, Bustos said that he's actually grown to 6'6". He will be their top player coming back. But you still got to get him the ball. And I think a lot's going to depend on what Diego Mize, one of their guards, he's going to be a sophomore next year, and junior Michael Marr. Michael Marr's, their sharp shooting guard, but they're both a little undersized and they're both still a little young. But if they can get the ball inside, they're going to be tough to beat. It seems like. But still, all roads go through St. Mike's, no matter what. So
Well,
we'll,
hopefully the administration is willing to give Adam some leeway. Just give him that opportunity because that's the guy who coached that team to a state championship last year. He's proven that he can do it. So hopefully they don't fire him or run him off. Tell him to get out too.
No, I don't think so. I think they ran off the people that they wanted to run off, and so that's where we're at with that.
Well, and then since we last did this, New Mexico Highlands, which is right down the road from Robertson, they hired Steve Jones back as the baseball coach.
Yeah.
Of course, Steve Jones, the winningest coach in baseball history at Highlands, left 11 years ago to take over the program, a fledgling program at Texas A&M, Texarkana. Coached there for 10 years, was summarily dismissed, or the mutual parting of ways. Then last season, he coached at LSU Shreveport, which, of course, went undefeated and won the NAIA national championship. So he's coming here after going 59-0 as the top assistant at Shreveport. But the thing is, like, you and I have both been to Highlands. It's not the
Yeah.
same Highlands that actually. Here, let me correct myself. It is the same Highlands that he left because the field is
It's even
exactly
the
the same.
same turf that he'd laid down, right?
Right, almost the faces have changed and some of the names have changed, but it is quite literally the same facility he had when he left. They haven't really done much. Maybe a fresh coat of paint here and there, but that
That's
is
about
it.
it.
Yeah, and
He's got a lot of work to do, but if anybody can do it, it's definitely Jonesy. And it's interesting, and I think you mentioned it too in the story that you wrote about him is, with the changing nature of college athletics, how is this going to impact Highland's ability to recruit?
Mhm.
Um, because you get a kid that has a successful year and suddenly starts getting overtures from a Division I school, and they can offer him money. I mean, how quickly are these guys just going to bail on a D2 school to go, get a chance to, get some money in their pockets to go play for a D1 program?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing that does help some of these in-state schools is if there's a New Mexico athlete that you really like and you can sign him but
Yeah,
essentially for free because they go to school for free. You might have to give them a little money off to the side just to help offset the cost of whatever, but you can give essentially a full scholarship where the state funds that for you. So then you can use that extra money to pay for a kid that maybe you like out of Colorado or Texas or Arizona or wherever.
yeah,
So you can be a little more aggressive going after some of these transfer portal guys. Of course, baseball had, I believe, it was 5,000 names in the transfer portal, and that's a lot of names. Most of those
that
guys are not
is.
going to wind up anywhere. So yeah, Steve Jones, super likable guy, one of my favorite college coaches of all time. And
Yes,
coming back, and
one of
he look,
ours.
he first said one of the first things he did is he walked into Charlie's Spick and Span, and he was greeted with friendly smiles and a "Hey, coach, where you been?" kind of thing. So that
Ain't that nice when they still remember your name, even if it's been about 10 years since you've been
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I said the first thing he did is walk in there and just order the same dish he always had gotten and sat at roughly the same place he'd always sat, and just people remembered him. So it's kind of a cool homecoming and really a good get. I think New Mexico Highlands is in a good spot. They've got a fantastic baseball coach, probably the best football coaching hire in the country when they
Yeah.
hired the NIMI coach, and then the men's basketball coach who we had on here too. Just a bright, very energetic guy who's going to probably hopefully do some special things there, but we'll see. But it is an uphill battle at New Mexico Highlands. They need the funding to match the energy, so we'll see.
Well, they've got some energetic guys. I think they might be able to get it done, and hopefully they can.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and talk about James was on hiatus last week and give him an opportunity to explain some of the things that's been going on with him. But it'll be a quick thing and something I think it's going to hit home with a lot of people. So
Yeah.
we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Look, James, you're out of the office last week, which is
Yeah.
really rare because you never take a break. Anyone who
Yes,
knows James Brown
unfortunately.
knows that there, even on vacation, there is no vacation for James Brown. He does not take a break. He's always texting. He's always in touch, which is the great thing about you. But obviously, your time off last week was for something different. I know you had a personal thing going on. Just you
Yeah.
want to share that with people and just talk to us about what's going on.
And this kind of happened early last week, or actually it started toward the end of last week, the previous weekend. But I lost my dad, Joseph Morse. He lives in Belen and everything, and he passed away on Monday afternoon or Monday evening, I should say. And so we spent the past week just trying to help the family out, trying to getting all the memorial services and the funeral details ironed out and everything, and then just spending time with family. We had a lot of family that came in. Some of it was wasn't even expected. We had family coming in anyhow, just to visit, just to come in and visit in Albuquerque, and then this happened. So it was kind of fortuitous how it all worked out. But yeah, yesterday, which Monday should say, since this comes out Wednesday, we had the funeral and everything, and the burial, and so we were dealing with that, and it was pretty emotional, and it was good, and it's been kind of hard. You kind of go through. I think everybody that's lost a parent understands kind of that emotional roller coaster that you go through when you lose somebody that you love and you care about. It's you have good moments and you have bad ones, and sometimes you have to work your way through those bad moments. And fortunately, we've kind of been leaning on each other to do that. My dad, he was born in Boston. He moved down here in Albuquerque back in the mid 70s. Really wasn't a sports guy, which is kind of weird. And I think it's interesting how our relationship evolved over time. He was actually my stepdad. He married my mom when I was 8. and then we moved out here we lived in Kansas and we moved out here to Albuquerque in 1984. Pretty much have lived here outside of 5 months. My first newspaper job in Vero Beach back in 2003. Other than that, this has pretty much been home, and then he's pretty much been there and everything. Was not much of a sports guy. I mean, he was, he was focused on his business, and he was very, very, very religious man, and was very strong and very intense in his faith and everything. So, and it's kind of weird because I really leaned into sports, and really about our only connection was my dad was a wrestler when he was in high school, and he's from Boston, and I took up the task of being a Red Sox fan, in part I think just to kind of be able to find a way to connect with him, and but I've carried that through since then. He was someone that was, he told me even in his last few days he was very proud of me and everything that I've done. He suffered from Parkinson. Suffered with Parkinson's over the last 15, 20 years. And like any other kind of debilitating disease like that, it's hard to watch them kind of wither away. I mean, the man that I knew was not the same man that I saw over the last 7, 8, really even the last 10 years. And that's disheartening to see. And I think it was hard for everybody in my family to kind of watch him deteriorate like that. And I think we were all ready for him to go. There had been 3 or 4 instances over the last year where, we kind of got the call that this might be it, and he would always kind of pull through. And I kind of thought the same thing too, because I got the call, like about 10, 11 days ago. And my mom said that, she thought this was going to be it. And, I think part of the reason was because we decided not to send him back to the hospital. We just decided, just hospice care, that was it. He was done with hospitals and dealing with that. And he felt like if he was going to go, he wanted to go at home. And so, we spent the last 2 or 3 days, spending a lot of time there. And he passed away, like I said, last Monday. And then obviously the following Monday, we this past Monday, we had the funeral, and he will be missed. And I know my sisters, all 4 of them, my mom, we're all going to miss him, and we're sad to see him go. But I think we're also happy that he's in a better place and he's not suffering anymore. I think that's the worst thing that any sibling or any child to a parent wants to see is their mother or their father suffer like that. And we're just glad that he's in, like I said, he's in a better place. And I know there have been some people that have reached out to me, even people up in northern New Mexico that they kind of know the situation, and they've offered their condolences and their support, and I really do appreciate it. If I can, I'll give a special shout out to the people that I play basketball with on Thursdays and Saturdays, and that includes Will. They made sure that we played on Thursday, last Thursday, and they did it. They said they did it for me, and it was pretty special. I'll say that. It felt really nice to do something that's a little normal, and you don't have to think about all the sadness and the despair that you're going through, and it really meant a lot. So thanks, Will, for that. All the
We
guys.
tried to let you hit a couple shots. We tried to leave you open.
I know, man, but I don't like that, man. I like getting hit. I like it. When I walk away with a bruised, with a bruised finger or a jam thumb, and fortunately I got that on Saturday, man. I can still barely move this one, after I took one off the tip there. So yeah, but it was really nice, and I think that was something that I'll always treasure. It's just that moment with what you all did for me, and it really meant a lot.
Well, he must have installed a good work ethic in you, because look, when it happened, typically, and this is me, typically people kind of go into a shell and kind of want to go into a mourning phase where they just don't want to go out in public. They don't want to do anything. And when I was passing this message along to our editors, our bosses, I said, it wouldn't at all surprise me if James is back at work tomorrow or the next day. And sure enough,
Yeah,
a
Wednesday.
day and a half later, you were back at it. But I've noticed work is a very therapeutic thing for you. It seems to keeps you regulated, keeps you busy. Did that come from him? Is that a family trait?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because it really is. I remember when Joe's dad died, probably about 20, 25 years ago. one of the first things he did, after he passed away, and we took care of some of the funeral arrangements. He took off up for Eagle's Nest because he had he was doing a religious function up there for a group of people, and he just decided to just go right into that and everything. And I think for him, that was his way of dealing with the grief and his loss. And I think in a lot of ways for me, just throwing myself back into work is much the same way. He was very much like that. He ran 3 businesses, and not all at the same time, but over the course of his life. And it's very much just he always had a very inventive mind when it came to business and trying to think of a different way to make money. And wasn't always successful, but that entrepreneurial spirit was always there. And I think that's something that I kind of inherited, is just when all else fails, go I guess go with what you know. And what I know is covering sports, and that's kind of what I did. And I did the netting story last week for the for the Fuego, but it was kind of nice to be able to do that. And then I was a little mad because I didn't hear from Los Alamos, because they're trying to follow up on a potential story, and hopefully we get it out there here in the next day or two about about their boys basketball position opening up. For those that don't know, James Boyd was hired about 2 weeks ago, and apparently he's no longer the basketball coach. So Los Alamos is looking for a new boys coach. So if you're interested, hit up Guy Meyer.
Hit up Guy Meyer, and don't hire Voight from Hobbs. He's the guy who'll take your job and not show up.
Apparently he likes applying for jobs, but he doesn't necessarily like accepting them for some reason.
Or accepting them, then changing his mind at the last second.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He's that guy. Well, look, I know you're going to pay tribute to your father this week in a column, which is more than justified, and it really gives you perspective on life, because you and I are both getting up there. We're both in our I'm on the plus side of the AARP line, and you're closing in fast.
I'm right behind you, man.
You're right there.
In December. So it's a slippery slope downhill from there. 65 is just not that far away, and I'm already getting all the ARP emails and everything in my personal inbox. So at some point I'm gonna have to just break down and apply for one and start enjoying all the perks that come with it.
Yeah, I did that. I actually did that. They give you some breaks, which helps, but I'm inundated with AARP stuff now. But I'm old enough to be on the senior tour, and that basketball group that we're in, I'm now the oldest guy in our basketball group, which really
ain't that funny?
Yeah, we got to get Ken Sickinger from the Journal back. Ken was always the oldest guy, but now I'm the oldest guy. So
now you're the guy that's hobbling up and down.
Yeah, but your dad seems like a good guy, just a good person, raised a outstanding family. Just must have had that blue collar work ethic, which is hard to find. Which is really hard to find these days. So thoughts to your family, and just all the best, because look, I know it's traumatizing when you lose a family member, especially when it's the patriarch of everything you're.
No, it is, but it was, like I said, thanks for everything too, about all that. And I hope I hope for everybody out there that has parents that are still alive, I hope they live long and fruitful lives, because the last thing you want to do is kind of deal with that.
Yeah, it's the ending is never ever easy, even though you're prepared for it. It's still rough. But that's speaking of that basketball group. That's why we made a very rare appearance on Twitter last week. We retweeted Chase Kendall, who's a Sandia Prep basketball player.
Yeah.
We retweeted his stuff. You and I are very rarely on Twitter, because Twitter, as we all know, is a disgusting cesspool. It's a cesspool of hate, and people say nasty things to each other. It's awful, but it's a necessary evil. So shout out to the Kendalls and to John Elliott and Coach Joaquin, all those guys who helped us
definitely.
So that's going to do it a wrap for this week. I'd like to thank our guest Andrew Dunn for not coming on again. That was great.
Thank you.
That was awesome interview, Andrew. As always,
we'll never know what flight he was on this time and where he was going.
Yeah, in this week's podcast, not sponsored by the Rodeo de Santa Fe, apparently. But anyway, we will trudge forward into which hopefully will be a short summer, even though we look forward to summer every year. Hopefully the fall football camp opens very soon.
Yeah, we can't wait for that to come.
Yeah, because now we're just like, now what are we going to do? So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you a week from now.